All right. First and foremost, of course, I give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High. It's your brother, Chief Priest Alizar Baloya, aka the GRLA Hebrew, coming at y'all with episode 4 of the Gorilla 316 podcast, my professional wrestling center podcast. I certainly have not been regular with this, and my apologies, but like I typically speak on, podcasting is really not a first or even second priority for me. So sometimes it takes me a while to get to it, and then I got so much I want to talk about, then I don't get around to it, then it kind of passes, and it's kind of not relevant anymore, and then I just like, whatever, F it, I'll get to it later. A lot happens, but I had to be glued to wrestling within this last week because of everything that's happened. Raw season premiere, SmackDown season premiere, moving days and networks, the debut of AEW Dynamite, things going on Impact, etc. So I watched a lot of wrestling this week. It's currently Wednesday, October the 9th. It's 6:43 a.m. here in Atlanta, Georgia. And Raw, I started to watch Raw this week, but I got to recap last week's Raw, last week's AEW, last week's SmackDown, and Hell in a Cell. So I stopped watching Raw from this week, and I'll worry about that next week if I get to it. Hopefully, I'm trying to stay as consistent as possible. But again, like I said, I got so much going on with ministry, with family, business endeavors, etc. That this kind of does take a back seat. But it is what it is. I still, like I said, I've been glued to wrestling. Outside of everything else I got going on, because it's a very interesting and exciting time. And I heard a debate between who's this nigga, Conrad Thompson, and Disco Inferno on a Keeping It 100 the Conan podcast, which is pretty much the main podcast I listen to as far as wrestling. And if I don't watch wrestling, I find out what's going on in wrestling between watching like probably WrestleLamia, What Culture, and Keeping It 100. So just so y'all can understand where I'm coming from, if you're a first-time listener, new listener, if you're not familiar with me outside of this podcast or anything, that's pretty much how I get my wrestling news. If I'm not watching myself, I got the network, but I don't always get it. I got the network and I got Impact Plus, but I just don't always get around to it. Got a lot going on. But I definitely watched Raw. I definitely watched Dynamite. I definitely watched SmackDown, and I definitely watched Hell in a Cell. I do not watch NXT. I will not watch NXT. When NXT debuted on USA, I tried to force myself to watch it. NXT is just not for me at all. Definitely not for me. But the whole point was there was a debate between DI, Disco Inferno, and Conrad Thompson, which was interesting. And basically DI was talking about how much greater it was to be a wrestling fan back in the day where the Disco Infernos and the Conans were active wrestlers, Attitude Era. And Conrad Thompson had the best counter to that I've ever heard. And I am surprisingly inclined to agree with him. Though DI, Disco Inferno's point was that the product was better and that wrestling overall as an industry was better. The product was certainly better, right? But the difference now is, like Conrad pointed out, there's more options. Wrestling is more accessible. You have all these podcasts, all these people to talk about it, inside information, these networks, video on demand services. You can consume wrestling and wrestling related things at a far greater level than you could during the time where the product was better. So, to a degree, it is better now to be a wrestling fan than then. But just in all truth, the product was better then. But the good thing is, instead of having to wait to watch it live every Monday, or Monday or Wednesday or Thursday or whatever, and catch your pay-per-views once a month, and having to tape stuff, go buy your ass a tape and tape it, and you have a VCR program at the time. Now we got video on demand services like the network, like Hulu, like Impact Plus. All we got to do is go on there to catch up. We also got bootleg sites. Feel me? So it is what it is. But let's start with Raw. All right, before I go any further. There's something to me about, in 6th grade I did a science experiment. And my science experiment was based on perception. It was based on branding. It was based on, I did I did my own soda company. But part of my premise was dealing with perception, how people perceive things, and branding, and the scientific aspect of it. Since then, I've dealt with that, just the whole concept of branding since I was very young, and how I like, just the thoughts that are triggered and the feelings and the emotions that are triggered within you when you see certain things. So I like rebrands a lot of times. I liked when they did the last Raw rebrand, where basically like the Raw logo was very reminiscent of the like the Dodge Ram logo. And I like that rebrand. And I like the SmackDown Live. I like that rebrand a lot. That SmackDown Live logo. I'm not as big a fan of the new SmackDown logo, the one for Fox. But as far as the Raw, hugely, I like it a lot. It feels like Raw right now feels like what Invasion Nitro would have been. If the Invasion would have been booked that WCW took over Monday nights and made it, WCW Nitro back under the Invasion angle WCW logo. Like, that's what that new Raw logo feels like and looks like, and it's reminiscent to me, and I like it a lot. Because, and I like what they're doing, and just from watching, not to get into Raw that happened this last Monday, which would have been the 7th, not to get into that too much, because that'll be for the next show, but it's like, the way they're booking it is Fox versus USA. They know they can't book it as two different companies against each other because it's all under the WWE banner. So now the rivalry is between the USA Network and the Fox Network. That's interesting. So it's feeling like two different companies, because it is two different companies. It's Fox and USA. Even though it's one company, WWE, it's Fox versus USA. And that's where the Raw is kind of feeling like the Invasion Nitro, if that makes sense. I hope that resonates. That's kind of like how it feels to me. The first thing I saw was these new announcers. The first thing that popped into my head is, who in the fuck are these two niggas standing in between King, standing on either side of Jerry King Lawler? Who are these individuals? I don't know who these people are, but they're cool. Not that I didn't like them, but I mean, maybe I missed out. Maybe they've been introduced to WWE television prior to this, but I ain't been avidly watching. I mostly just catch pay-per-views, and even then, like, did I watch the last pay-per-view? Probably not, before Hell in a Cell. I don't even know, to be honest. But it was like, who the fuck are these niggas? But they're cool though. I didn't mind them, and with King there, with that familiar voice there, it was cool. That Brock intro thing was great with Rey Mysterio and his son, man. It was a textbook Paul Heyman riot scene. I'm a huge mark for the Heyman riot. The Heyman riot stuff. Great promo. And it's just, I like it. I could tell Paul Heyman's writing was, Paul Heyman's hands were all over that, and that was great. Great way to catch heat for Brock. It's crazy, man, just seeing Dominic and seeing Ray, and just being in the around the indie scene in San Diego over the last couple of years, seeing Dominic get trained and seeing Ray come to indie shows, Dominic come to indie shows, and be familiarized with, he was training at the same facilities as the majority of the indie guys that were coming up in the San Diego system. So, it was great to see him on TV and being featured prominently, and be able to get his ass whooped by Brock Lesnar. That's a big opportunity. Moving on though. Sasha kind of being the coward heel. She was kind of the coward heel in her angle. And I'm kind of not a fan of Sasha being a coward heel. Her being a boss. It kind of, I don't know. The heel is cowardly. So I guess whatever. No big deal. But the thing was, when that tag team title match came last week, it was like, this is what kills me about the WWE product today, is the highs and lows. It's bipolar, almost, the product. We come in, Brock destroys Rey Mysterio and his son. Then we have a hot, girls angle going on. Then it comes to this tag team title match, and I'm talking about, it just tanks. It's so, like, I go from such a high and being so hype about the product to so low that I almost just don't want to watch the rest of the show. Thank God I'm watching it after the fact on demand. So Hey, the Miz TV stuff come Flair and Hogan to hell with both of their ass. I skip right past that. I'm not even tripping about that. Now, in retrospect, when I wrote this note initially, I said there could be something to the new Rusev. But in retrospect, I don't know. I don't know what's up with this new Rusev. I don't know where they're going. I don't know if I like it. I don't know if they don't like it. I'll comment on the other aspects of it momentarily. But I don't know about this new Rusev. Then they do this Authors of Pain promo. I know they did one this week. I didn't see it. But last week they do this Authors of Pain promo. And to me, it was a big ball drop. To me, it was corny as hell. To me, they could be doing something a lot better with Authors of Pain. And I think that the Authors of Pain should be working directly and exclusively with Paul Heyman to develop their characters. And I think that would be great. I think they got them working with some other who knows who the fuck writer. And it's really not working, in my opinion, whatsoever. Then we had the Ricochet versus Cesaro match. First thing I noticed, Ricochet had some cool tights on. I don't know what the fuck Cesaro had on. That shit looked stupid. It was a good match though, but I believe it was over entirely too quick. Then we got the AJ Styles and Cedric Alexander match, which was amazing. And I believe I saw them do that, have a matchup on the Indies in North Carolina. Hold on, let me look. I think in Cedric's home indie they did this. Yeah, PWX Wrestling about 5 years ago, they had a tremendous match, 30-minute match, better than they had on Raw, in all honesty. But that match was also good. Don't get me wrong. That match was also good. I think that I really just hope, I'm glad that they booked that match, and I really hope that they do not drop the ball. And if you listen to this podcast, you're going to consistently hear me harp on the importance of WWE not dropping the ball on these black talents as they have in the past. Cedric Alexander should be somebody. Cedric Alexander should be WWE top tier champion. Right? Maybe not today, but he should be on that path. The same way Ricochet should. The same way Big E should. We'll talk about Big E in a minute. The same way Big E should. Same way Kofi finally was. You know what I mean? That these things need to be definitely, they need to definitely see their pushes. Balls don't need to be dropped with them like was dropped with Apollo Crews, like was dropped with Mark Henry. Even though Mark Henry did have World Heavyweight Championship, I think Mark Henry should have been pushed on a greater level than he ever was. And several other black talents formerly with WWE. All right, moving on. This was my first time seeing Street Profits. People have asked me about my opinion of Street Profits. I hadn't really seen them. I've only kind of seen them like on Instagram. I never saw the little promos that they do. And it's cool, and I'm glad that they found a way to incorporate them on TV every week. They were on Raw, they were on SmackDown, they were on this recent Raw, and then they're competing on NXT. I'm glad that they found a way to pencil them in. But honestly, the other dude, like the bigger one, I think his charisma is... He's outclassed by his partner as far as charismatically, and I think it's a mismatch. So I know that his boy will probably be separated from him eventually once they make it up to the quote-unquote main roster, even though I think, rumor has it, they're not doing like this main roster thing, and they're going to just let NXT be NXT. We'll see as the Wednesday Night Wars progress if they're going to stick to that. Then we get to Rusev versus Rollins for the title. In my opinion, Rusev was doing really shitty ring work against Rollins. Rollins had a really cool spot, in my opinion, of the Falcon's Arrow. I didn't see it coming, and it was executed very well. Then when it gets to the Lashley and Lana thing, it was crazy. The Fiend interruption at the end of it was great, though. Now, this Lashley and Lana thing has got Vince written all over it. And you saw that more this week, but again, I ain't going to get into this week too much. I'm more so talking about last week. But the Lashley and Lana stuff, it was crazy. It was shocking. And it was like, all right, But yeah, just the show ending without a bell made it seem kind of like an episode of Supernatural, which is a show that I love, but I don't think that was good, though. I don't think it should have just ended like that without a bell. That kind of trickles into the Hell in a Cell decision, which we'll get to, of course. I'm just kind of going in order. Raw, now I'm going to get to AEW, right? So the interesting contrast to me is that the new Raw feels like the Invasion Nitro, But AEW Dynamite feels like 98, 99 Nitro. In Raw feels like Invasion Nitro in a good way, and AEW Dynamite feels like 98, 99 Nitro in a good way. Just the way that they got the black, what is that, curtains or whatever the hell it is on the ring, and the black ropes. It really looks like that 98, 99 Nitro in the best way. And I know it's been a lot of talk leading into Dynamite of them kind of straying away from just being the new WCW. But I think the way that Dynamite was presented to me, it was like AEW is the new WCW, and opposed to running from it, they're owning it and they're making good out of it. And that's great, because essentially, whether we like it or not, AEW is the new goddamn WCW. It just is. All right, unless you're going to say AEW is the new WWE and WWE is the new WCW. I mean, I don't know. But to me, AEW feels like the new WCW in the best ways. And if they do this properly, they'll capitalize where WCW didn't and not see the same fate as WCW. Right? So I'm liking AEW. And I'm going to be honest. I was of the utmost skeptics about AEW's ability to deliver a product. And I'm still a little bit skeptical because they did it 1 week. We seen them do this show and that show, but to consistently 52 weeks out of the year deliver us a hot product, I don't know if they can do it. I'm still a little bit skeptical, but some of my skepticism was calmed through how impressed I was by the show. Even though I absolutely hate Dynamite as the name, and the fact that when he was a kid, that was his damn fan fiction federation had a show called Dynamite. Dynamite as the name of a weekly wrestling show certainly sounds like the idea and the concept that was born in the mind of a prepubescent adolescent, without question. And I think that responsibly, it should not have been the name that they went forward with as a legitimate TNT primetime wrestling show, but it is what it is. The decision's made. There's nothing that can be done, right? Whatever. Cool. It feels good. I like it from the onset. And I like that they brought in Tony Schiavone. To hear Tony Schiavone and good old JR, God, that's a great combination. That's a combination that I never personally heard, but those were my two favorite voices of commentary, respectfully, from WWE and WCW. So to have them reunited at a company, hearing them calling matches together, it was great. Nostalgic. It gave me a nostalgia high. It was great. I like all of that. Moving on, though. Cody's over-the-top interests are beginning to be very annoying to me, and too much. Cody just needs to keep it straight. We get it. You run the shit. You're a top motherfucker in the company. You can do what you want. You want everything to be extravagant. I think they need to hold back on that a little bit, though. Just get that motherfucker, at most a goddamn Triple H intro and move the fuck on, right? But there was a close-up. When he first came out, there was a close-up the camera did on him, and he looked eerily like his pops in that close-up. I don't know if anybody else caught that, but he looked eerily like his pops. But what's fucked up is this. Cody has this extravagant, over-the-top, fucking overblown entrance, and then you got Sammy Guevara came out to his fucking amateur hour entrance. It was a huge drop off, and that's something that they shouldn't have let happen. And those are the type of small things that AEW, like, because this was one of my critiques and reason I was so skeptical about AEW, because watching their events that they had, their pay-per-views they had leading up, it was a lot of indie shit going on, and a lot of that indie shit can't be done on the mainstream level. It just can't be done. And some of the indie shit I just don't have a taste for. Even though I'm a fan of indie wrestling, I go to indie shows, I patronize various indie promotions and taking their product. The fact is, there's some indie shit I really, really, really do not care for. And some of that same shit was the shit that they were doing at their pay-per-views leading up to Dynamite. So these are the things that they're going to have to fix. That amateur hour ass intro, that amateur hour rather ass entrance that they gave Sammy Guevara, especially when you contrast it versus the extravagant interest that Cody had prior to him, that was ridiculous. That was something that they certainly should not have let happen. Production should have not let that go down, right? Other than that, Sammy was looking greener than usual in the ring. Sammy is a tremendous in-ring performer. I've seen him do a lot of jaw-dropping things, but he looked really green in the ring against Cody to open up that, and I think his nerves probably had a lot to do with that. Just to be the first match of this new era of this quote unquote revolution that Cody calls it, wrestling on TNT, prime time, setting the bar in that moment. I believe Sammy was nervous, and his nerves showed through, and his ring work was a little green. It wasn't too bad, but I certainly noticed that it was a lot greener than usual. I noted this as well, that Tony Schiavone referenced the first ever Nitro match, and that just proves that they can't get away from being the new WCW. But again, I don't think that's a bad thing. Other than that, though, in that match, something else I noticed about Brandy Rose that I always notice about Brandy Rose, she's a great, true, classic professional wrestling valet, and she executes being a valet to the utmost perfection. She's great as far as that goes, even though I'm not a huge fan of her relationship. Right? Moving on. Now, to me, something that's stupid that they're emphasizing is time limit strictness. I'm not a fan of it usually, but my mind kind of changed on it. No, my mind didn't change, kind of, but I was kind of warming up to it. My mind probably can be changed, but I'm really not a fan of the time limit strictness that they're emphasizing. They're calling out in the middle of the match, 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes. I don't know. I like the wins and losses counting. I like that being attributed, and these guys are coming out, and it's got their 1-0 or their 2-0 or whatever. But that time limit shit, you might could change my mind, but I really kind of don't like it. All right. I think the Spanish Fly should have been a finish. But because it was a great place in that match to finish it, even though I don't believe Sammy should have been over, especially for what it was. Cody definitely was no-brainer going over, but the way he landed that Spanish Fly and the way that the story of the match has been told up to that point, it should have been the finish point of the match. It would have been the perfect finish. All right. I understand that Cody was supposed to go over. I don't have a problem with Cody going over, but I think the way that the match went, Sammy Guevara going over with the Spanish Fly worked better than how they ended up booking the finish. All right, period. But then the Jericho runner was great. It feels so nostalgically Nitro. It persisting through the commercial with the picture in picture was also great. I like that a lot too. That was good. Jericho always functions best as a heel, as a pompous, arrogant, asshole heel. That is who Jericho is. He shouldn't be booked as a face. He should always be that heel, and he's going to excel, and he's going to give you exactly what you need out of a pompous villain that people love to hate and hate to love. Period. Then you got this motherfucker Brandon Cutler come out, who I guess is homies with what's their name? The damn Young Bucks or whatever. First thing that pops into my mind when this motherfucker come out is, who the fuck is he? Glad MJF came out on the mic and buried the nigga. I think, the way his look, Brandon Cutler's look just was not good to me. You could say I'm of the Vince school of thought as far as how wrestlers should look. I kind of do lean more towards the Vince school of thought as far as that goes, being that I came up in that time. But I just couldn't stand Brandon Cutler, and I was really happy MJF came out and buried him, even though MJF to me, though he gets all this praise for being a heel, all MJF to me is a fucking cut rate EC3. That's all he's going to be to me until he, number one, changes his fucking name and initials and stops acting like that. He kind of looks like a cut rate. Just his face he kind of looks like he's a distant relative of EC3. That's annoying. Then his name is MJF. He's got this aristocratic bullshit, fake silver spoon in the mouth rich kid, which I don't even believe. I believe he probably was at best middle class growing up. Attitude. He's just a fucking cut rate EC3. But I'm glad he buried this dude. But after the match started, I realized that Brandon Cutler's work was more solid than Sammy Guevara's work, which, because Sammy Guevara was clearly nervous. He was clearly acting green, but his work is typically on a higher level than that. But Cutler certainly outperformed Sammy Guevara, unfortunately. It also kind of worked my nerves that MJF is going around calling himself the salt of the earth. Yeah, fucking right. You got that fake ass Burberry scarf on, and you're a bootleg goddamn EC3, and you think you're the salt of the earth? Yeah, the fuck right. I don't know why everyone's marking out for MJF. He's really not that great. He probably could be better, but I mean, I don't understand how I'm the only person who's harping up on the fact that this motherfucker's a bootleg goddamn EC3. He is, clearly. Um, then they cut to Jay and Silent Bob in the crowd. Jay looks like somebody's fucking mom, and Silent Bob looks like Fat Bastard after the Subway diet. So that was hilarious to me. Then we got Trailer Trash, goddamn Jack Evans come out, and he had some nerve to badmouth Morris Day, man. I couldn't even believe that. Then we had the SCU. They had their little vignette that they did. Scorpio Squad did a fucking amazing Obama. I mean, that was one of the best Obama impressions that I've ever heard. So big up to SCU. Penta comes out. He got on the Gucci, man. I see Penta Gucci down, Gucci to the shoes. I see Phoenix working on his English. But the brawl that was between SCU and the Lucha Brothers, it was very underwhelming, especially considered these are some of the best performers in professional wrestling today, regardless of promotion. The most sought-after tag team in professional wrestling today is the Lucha Brothers, and they had that lackluster-ass brawl, that underwhelming-ass brawl on the opening inaugural episode of AEW Dynamite. They definitely should have did more, maybe even possibly a through a table spot. Something like that should have just happened as an exclamation point, because that brawl was whack, and it was one of the few low points of this show, and I hate the fact that the low point was when Penta and Phoenix was out there. Like and SCU too. These are some of the best performers in the game ever, right? I'm highly upset that Earl Hebner is a referee in AEW or anywhere. He looks like a fucking fossil. He needs to retire. He needs to get out of the professional wrestling business. He needs to just get a Hall of Fame induction in WWE Hall of Fame and never be seen again. Maybe do a podcast. I don't know. But Earl Hebner looks like a fucking fossil. He needs out of the ring. I mean, it's goddamn near hazardous. These Earl Hebners and these fucking Nick Patricks, these niggas do not need to be reffing anymore. There's plenty of other people who could do a fucking referee's job. Let them ref. Stop bringing these fucking Attitude Era refs around. These motherfuckers are too old. They're gonna break a goddamn hip trying to keep up with this high-paced 2019 professional wrestling action. I mean, it's fucking a hazard. It's a work hazard. Get them out of the ring. Enough on that rant. Anyway. Now and an example of that is how quickly he called the Pac and Page thing, right? That Pac and Page match was a great match, but he called it way too quick. Way too quick he rang the bell, and I think that's just a testimony to how old that nigga is and how much he don't need to be in the ring. Earl Hebner, that is. There was no downs in Dynamite until the women's match, which was well over an hour into it. And, you know, I just skipped past that because, mind you, I ain't got TNT. So, you know, I watched it. Well, actually, I do. I have TNT on demand. So, I did watch it through TNT on demand. So, yeah, but just by the way that first hour went, hands down, Dynamite beat Raw this week. And Raw had a pretty good show, but Dynamite was good all the way through, minus the women's match. So, I definitely think that Dynamite, as far as quality of product, beat Raw last week in the inaugural week. The main event was great booking. The Moxley Omega brawls are great, but I think it kind of happened a little too early. I think they could have let the match progress a little bit more before Moxley came out. And in the coffee table spot, the through the glass was overkill. It was crap. I think for such a good brawl, it happened a little too early, and then that coffee table crap was just unnecessary. I think a plate glass window would have been better and more effective. You know, you remember the good old plate glass windows niggas used to get thrown through in the Attitude Era, for those of y'all that was around. But overall, it was a great main event. The show's action was great. It was action packed, and I definitely see that as long as they can keep up the good work like they did on that first show, WWE is going to have a serious fucking problem competing and keeping up with All Elite Wrestling, for sure. Okay, so now moving on to SmackDown, right? Going to my notes on SmackDown, all right? Just from the onset of the show cracking off, man, it feels like a legitimate sport. The atmosphere it feels like it was a legitimate sporting event, for sure. They definitely outdid themselves with that. I've always believed since I was a kid, I believe that there should have been a live coast to coast Friday professional wrestling show that would come on a sports entertainment, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I always was of the school of thought since a youngin', since 11, 12 years old, that on Fridays there should be live at 5 PT, 8 ET, a live, legitimate sport atmosphere feeling wrestling show. And I'm glad that now I'm damn near 30 and it's finally happened. The first 20 minutes was fucking tremendous, even though Baron Corbin was drastically outclassed. Not only by The Rock, but also I think Becky Lynch outclasses him as far as, charismatically and as a talker. I think Becky Lynch even outclasses Baron Corbin. But I think the first 20 minutes was definitely good. Really definitely good, man. Rock demonstrating his never dying power of being able to create hilarious segments in the match. The fact that this new era of SmackDown still kicked off with an ode and a homage to the creator of the word SmackDown that's now in the English dictionary. That's who the salt of the earth is, MJF. The black man, The Rock, the Hispanic man. That's who the salt of the earth is. I just want to throw that in there. But for the new era of SmackDown to kick off with a nice rock bottom and a people's elbow, man, there was no other way to do it. That was beautiful and amazing. I don't know who was behind it, whether if it was Vince, whether if it was Eric, whether it was a combination, but goddamn it, whoever did that right. That was 20 powerful minutes. The only way that first 20 minutes should have gone to start this new era of SmackDown. And overall, the show was really good. It was like it felt like a pay-per-view. Like, I knew watching SmackDown that Hell in a Cell was not going to be better than SmackDown because of how good SmackDown felt. SmackDown had all the makings not only of a legitimate sporting contest, but it also had all the makings of a great, one of the big four pay-per-views. That's what it felt like. So I knew Hell in a Cell was going to be lackluster compared to it. But Hell in a Cell was still cool. I think Hell in a Cell is kind of getting a bad rap because of that ending, and we'll talk about that. But SmackDown, the first one on Fox, it was great. I like the whole Braun Strowman and Tyson Fury confrontation. It was cool. I've always thought that Tyson Fury belonged in wrestling more than he belonged in boxing, even though his boxing skills have drastically increased. He's world champion now. I remember the first time I saw him, it was on like some Saturday afternoon shit on ABC years ago, and I saw him get a win, and I saw him talking this shit on the mic, and I said, this dude, he belongs in wrestling. He should get out of boxing. Wrestling is his place for this motherfucker. So I'm glad to see him being incorporated in wrestling and a potential angle coming out of this and the beautiful benefits of cross-promoting, his fight and WWE, etc. But yeah, I definitely think Tyson has always belonged to wrestling. Skipping to the main event. Here's the thing, right? Kofi won. I thought they might have made Kofi drop it at Stomping Grounds. He kept it. Then I said, okay, he ain't dropping it at Stomping Grounds. He's going to drop it at SummerSlam. He didn't drop it at SummerSlam. He got it. So I was content and I made total peace with Kofi losing the title on SmackDown. I just knew it. But then, week of, I'm thinking like, you know what? It almost seems too obvious that they would put Brock over. So maybe they're going to put this David versus Goliath thing and put David over in the form of Kofi Kingston, Brock being the heathen. In the case of Kofi Kingston, and I thought that because it was almost too obvious that Brock would get put over, that they would put Kofi over. Boy, was I wrong. I believe they kind of ended it too quick. I definitely think Kofi could have, just because of this underdog and this resilience that he's shown leading up to his reign, getting the title and keeping the title this whole time, I think he could have taken at least 2 F5s. I think so. But, he had a good run. If y'all watch my previous installments, just dealing with Kofi Kingston and when he won his title and me testifying about me crying for 10, 20 minutes, just ecstatically when Kofi won, that was a big thing. It was an emotional thing. I was happy for it, but I knew that it probably wouldn't make it past SummerSlam, and it did. He can't be champion forever. He had a good run. I think he had a good run. And it, it is what it is. I like the Cain Velasquez coming out. I didn't see it coming. That was great that Rey Mysterio came out with Cain Velasquez, who has legitimately whooped Brock Lesnar's ass in the shoot. The incorporation with Cain Velasquez and Tyson Fury is clearly a part of making SmackDown seem more real and get crossover fans from both UFC and boxing to take a look at wrestling. It's genius cross promotion, genius marketing on the part of WWE here, and I really hope it actually works. And I hope that they get some of those fans who have either not ever been interested in wrestling or abandoned wrestling for more legitimate combat sports now coming back. But they're going to have to do their part in presenting a product that is interesting enough for that. Even though I did like Cain Velasquez, I think Big E making the save would have been a lot better. I heard Booker T speaking to this. I think it would have been better. But the thing about it is, it's still possible. It looks like they're going to do this angle with Cain Velasquez, and it looks like it's going to mature at Crown Jewel. It doesn't look like it's going to be too long term. The same thing with Tyson Fury. It looks like they possibly could either be setting up 2 singles matches or even possibly a tag team match, Brock and Braun versus Tyson and Cain Velasquez, which would be a great match for Crown Jewel. But I don't think it's going to be very long lasting, Cain or Tyson Fury. So if Cain's place is not going to be long lasting, it's just for a quick pop and just to get some fans and some eyeballs on the WWE product during this switch over to SmackDown on Fox, Big E still can be booked versus Brock Lesnar, which he's one of the few guys on the roster that they have that legitimately can conceivably and believably beat Brock Lesnar in an actual fight. So there's no reason why he shouldn't be booked against him to avenge Kofi and he get the strap either now or down the line or have an off and on feud with him. I would like to see all that. I definitely like to see Big E get the push. Kofi got the push. That's great. He did his thing. Now I believe it's time for Big E to get his push either with New Day or without New Day. Big E is deserving of a push. He's charismatic. His mic skills have improved drastically. His natural athletic abilities are out of this world. He's a collegiate wrestler. He's an ex-power lifter. He's like a more athletic version of Mark Henry. I believe legitimately in the shoot, he could whip Brock ass, and I believe in the ring he could outwork Brock, and I believe he should be the one to defeat Brock Lesnar. Some people say Bobby Lashley. I wouldn't mind seeing Bobby Lashley, especially factoring in the fact that Bobby Lashley also has an illustrious mixed martial arts career that he had in Bellator. But here's the thing. Bobby Lashley is not as charismatic or skilled on the mic as Big E. He's not. So that has always posed a problem with the further advancement of Bobby Lashley's career is the lack of charisma and skills on the mic that the brother has. Period. If they put him back with Lio Rush, then it may be more plausible. I think they probably abandoned that idea by now, but it might not be a bad idea to bring Lio Rush up back as the manager or the handler or the representative of Bobby the same way. I mean, think about it. Think about these promos in the ring. Bobby and Brock facing off, Heyman and Lio Rush going back and forth. That's gold also. I think they could book that as well, right? No reason why Bobby can't wrestle Brock and Big E can't work Brock. Let's do it. Braun Strowman need to work Brock. Ain't too many other guys on that roster who legitimately, believably can work Brock. But those guys, why not do it? Even if you draw it all the way out to WrestleMania and have him work a couple of them, put them over them. I really would like him to drop to either Big E or Bobby Lashley, of course, because I'm biased because I'm a fucking black supremacist, right? But even if he got to go over for a payoff at Mania, I mean, I wouldn't mind that either. But yeah, let's now go to Hell in a Cell. I believe Hell in a Cell was overall a solid pay-per-view. I think the Sasha and Becky match was the best women's Hell in a Cell ever. I personally think Sasha should have went over. All critics are surprised that Becky still has a strap. I kind of understand, but I would have liked Sasha again because, like I said, I'm a black supremacist, so I would have preferred Sasha. I love blue hair Sasha. Same way I love blue hair Kiera Hogan, and in Impact, I think Sasha should have went over. Whatever, right? Roman and Bryan versus the Bludgeon Brothers. It was cool. I guess it was time for a Bryan face turn. I mean, it is what it is. He's a good heel, though. So, but, I mean, I guess it was time for his face turn. I saw that Braun doing that knockout punch to AJ. I know it's all a part of this greater thing going on with Tyson, the Gypsy King, knocking people out, bare knuckle boxing champion, that angle. It all plays to that angle, but AJ Styles is 40% the size of goddamn Tyson Fury. So I mean, I understand why they did it, but they should have had him sock out, Gallows, tall, little dumb, goofy, doofy, opie looking ass. You know. But the whole thing with this Tyson Fury angle that they're doing is what I realized is how risky it is. Because you really can't put Braun over Tyson Fury. And the reason why you can't put Braun over Tyson Fury is because Tyson Fury is a legitimate boxer, right? Who's got a legitimate boxing fight coming up. So Braun can't go over Tyson Fury, but if Tyson Fury goes over Braun, it could potentially bury Braun, weaken him in this whole get these hands angle. Then what? You don't want to bury Braun. Y'all have already fucked up and mishandled Braun. In my opinion, Braun should have had that strap. In my opinion, y'all motherfuckers be letting motherfuckers hold these straps too long. That was another good thing about the Attitude Era. Nigga wasn't holding the strap all year. Motherfucker was dropping that strap and passing that thing around because they were deserving people. You don't just pass it around and water it down. You pass it around because there are a multiplicity of individuals who are deserving of the strap. And the thing is, the beauty of this day and age wrestling is two goddamn straps that you can pass around. Braun should have had one of them. Now they're doing this thing with Tyson and Braun, which is cool because, like I said earlier, I like Tyson Fury, and I always thought he belonged to wrestling. But the thing is, you are now running a risk of potentially burying and weakening Braun Strowman, which is the last goddamn thing you want to do, right? Baron Corbin attacking Chad Gable during the interview was really weak up until the last spot where he threw him. Corbin was weak. I don't know if he belongs where he's at. Period. It was a weak, like, that attack was garbage. The whole angle overall is whack. Right? But it is what it is, man. Going into the main event, I got a lot of notes here on the main event. I didn't know how I initially thought about it. It felt like a horror movie, right? The way they put the Fiend came out and it was just red, the red lights the whole time. I didn't know how I felt about it initially. It really felt like a horror movie, but it definitely grew on me. It was kind of like when New Jack used to come out and the music just kept playing. His whole match, it kind of felt like that-esque, which kind of makes me think that Paul Heyman might have been behind it because he was kind of behind that, letting New Jack's music play throughout his match thing, and how he wanted it to feel kind of like a movie. The crowd turn was crazy just to watch that. It was way too many stomps. He did a really stiff ass goddamn chair shot. It was stiff as a motherfucker, man. The total suspension of disbelief. You needed to totally suspend disbelief at a point for that match to make sense, and it just got. I liked it because I did totally suspend disbelief and kind of felt like I was in the middle of a horror movie the way it was presented. But I definitely understand why the live audience did not take well to that theatrical presentation, because it was very theatrical. And sitting from the privacy of my home watching it on the screen, it felt good and cool, and I liked it, and I kind of marked for it. But at the end of the day, I could see being live, it being frustrating and not being that cool. And the ref stopping the sledgehammer attack, it's like, what the fuck? That was trash. And then he rang the bell like a DQ in the Hell in a Cell. Like that was such a level of bullshit. That was really bad booking. You do this out of this world goddamn movie presentation, horror movie match, and then you ring the fucking bell and don't let the motherfucker bring the goddamn sledgehammer out. How many times has Triple H used a sledgehammer and the ref not stopped him? But yet the same motherfucker who's a bootleg fucking diet Triple H, who does a pedigree just like him, he can't use the goddamn sledgehammer just like him, though? That's bullshit too, right? I think my fault. But just ringing a bell for the sledgehammer, there was plenty of extremely violent things. He beat him with a chair multiple times, a fucking ladder, a goddamn toolbox. It was already extremely violent. Why stop at the sledgehammer? Fuck it, keep going. Right? That was kind of retarded. The AEW chants were a huge fuck you. I think Bray should have definitely went over. Even after Bray woke up, the damage was done. The crowd was already out of it. It was fucking unbearable. Then the slasher flick blood was bullshit. Like, it was just bad, over the top theatrical. I can tell that whoever is like an ex-movie or screenplay writer, a part of their writing and creative team had a lot to do with that. And I think it definitely shot them in the foot. They shouldn't have did that. They really dropped the ball on this whole Seth and Fiend thing. And I personally think that they need to have Seth drop the strap and continue this thing with Fiend. Because Fiend, I don't know if he wants a title. Guys like that don't even need a title. That's a good overall feud, though. And I think it needs to be continued. And I think there's more of that story that needs to be told. But I think Seth has no business as the champion at this point. He's not over. The people are not behind him. They really don't give a fuck about him. Every time I see him, I think about his time in Wrestling Society X, which makes it impossible for me to take him seriously as a legitimate contender. So I really think he needs to drop the strap, even on a Raw or a fucking SmackDown. Drop that strap. Maybe even have the Fiend play a part in him, in distracting him to where he loses the title, so it can continue that feud, and somebody else can get that title, pick it up, and run with it, and be fucking great. All right? Whew. But with that, that was my review on this last week in wrestling, dealing with the Raw series premiere, SmackDown on Fox premiere, and the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Look out for my next one, though, man. I definitely appreciate y'all for listening. Hope it was fluid. Plan to do this more. I like where wrestling is right now. It's got me very interested to watch. So I'm going to keep watching. Thank y'all again. I want to give all praises to the Most High God, Yahweh. The name of His only begotten Son, Hamashiach Yahweh Shah, who you inwardly call Jesus Christ, a so-called black man. With that, it's your brother GRLA Hebrew, signing out. Shalom.